Our workshop today is about socially sustainable manufacturing ecosystems. We're kind of looking for the ways to get to an ideal state in the future. And this is our plan for the day. So we're going to spend about half an hour acquainting you with the So Smart project. Have any of you heard of it before? Okay, 1.5, that's very good. In that case, we're going to give you a short crash course in what our project is about and kind of the themes we touch on and what we mean with social sustainability. Then we'll have a 1-hour workshop session where we will split you into 3 groups that will each get a theme to work on. You will do the obvious post-it work that is so typical for workshops, and what you'll get is a scenario that we think is plausible for the future, and you're going to give your ideas on how that translates into stimulating workplaces. That's the theme for today. Then we'll have a second session, another hour, and that will be pretty much the same thing as the first hour, but it will be different themes for you to work on. So we have 6 themes in total that we'd like you to give your ideas on. And then the last 15 minutes of each of those sessions, we would like someone from each group to say, in summary, what you have been talking about. How this contributes to our project is that the outcome of this workshop is part of our generation of results. We want to continually have workshops so that we can involve a community into learning more about what social sustainability is and where you can find more knowledge about it and where to discuss it. Your perspectives and your inputs are going to be part of our results. So the results reporting we do from our workshops ends up eventually being the So Smart project's outcomes. So what we usually do is we talk about an ecosystem, and to find what that ecosystem is like, how you balance these different concerns on the individual and enterprise and society level, we think you have to talk a lot about scenarios and indicators, as in what is it we measure when we look for social sustainability, and how do we get it all to balance out between political interests and commercial interests. Other things we're doing, aside from what we try to do in this workshop, are to work on visions and strategies for the European Commission. This is an EU project, and they're very interested on a high level in what types of policies to develop in order to achieve socially sustainable manufacturing. Just so we get a kind of background on what social sustainability is driven by, we like to think that there are a lot of design challenges for future manufacturing coming out of demographic developments in Europe. So this is the population of Europe in total in the year 2012. There's a bit of an overweight situation from middle-aged people and upwards because so many people were born at that time. And when the years tick by and these bars start heading in that direction, eventually these people are going to move into retirement. And as you can see, immigration and childbirth has resulted in the recent decades in fewer people being born. And that means that when that surplus of people goes into retirement, we're simply not going to have enough people to fill the gap, to fill the knowledge gap and to fill the staffing gap. And of course, this in parallel moves together with increased automation of the industry and so on. But at the same time, having this much fewer people to choose from means that we have a lot of design challenges for manufacturing. And one of those challenges is that manufacturing is not traditionally considered a very attractive workplace. And that's kind of why you're here today. We want to talk about how do you make a workplace attractive enough to make younger people want to come and work there and to build a future and stay there so that they can build up expertise and knowledge. And other challenges that come out of this are that when you have this many people who are essentially the expertise of your company at the verge of moving out because of retirement, perhaps you want more of them to stay on with their extensive knowledge and maybe share that experience with the younger generation coming in. So another design challenge is how do you make a workplace where people who are more experienced can share their knowledge with people who are less experienced. So there are some future challenges that we have sort of at this stage established. One of them is attracting the young to manufacturing industry. Second is adapting the design of workplaces so that aging, experienced workers' needs are met. Because, of course, working up into an old age means that you can't stress people out all the time. You can't wear out their bodies. You have to think of those things in advance so they would still want to come to work every day and be able to function. A third challenge is, how do you support knowledge transfer between the employees? How do you overcome cultural differences so that efficiency is still fully functional? How do you support a healthy work-life balance among your employees? There are many ways of doing that, both through human resources work and through design of technology and through visions that the company leadership has to have. And then finally, how do you foster a mutual collaboration between educational systems so that they meet these changing needs of the industry? Another challenge that is coming up is that many companies have to start thinking about offering potential new employees the training they need in order to become competent, because we have a big problem today with the skills gap, meaning that a lot of companies are asking for competence that simply isn't being provided in the communities or in schools. So that means that some companies that are able to have to start thinking of on-site training. So as I mentioned before, this is kind of at the core of what we're trying to consider in most of our work with SoSmart. Whenever we look for ways of measuring social sustainability, we try to cover the individual life balance case, the industry business case, and the society business case. In the center is the individual who, in the end, decides what kind of lifestyle do they want to have, and what would that cost them? What kind of personal economy would they want to aim for? This could make someone either choose to work in a place or choose to move from a place, maybe relocate, maybe change education. It all depends on what access they have to these different options. Then there's personal development and their happiness and comfort, maybe consideration of their immediate family, and their health. And of course, the individual is going to be very interested in their employability, in the sense of how valuable can they be to the work market, kind of regardless of whether it's about the manufacturing business or not. In the industry business case, of course, there are similar considerations, but also those that have to do with what makes a company commercially competitive. It's kind of a reality they always have to adjust to. And some of the issues that have to do with social sustainability there are, of course, how do they stay attractive, but also how do they stay flexible? How do they make sure that they're profitable and competitive? And how do they manage human capital? And then finally, on the other end here, we have the society business case, which is on the spectrum of the political interests. And that will be more about what does the community around the manufacturing company need to emphasize? Do they want better citizen health? Probably. Do they want people to have appropriate education? Yes. What they want is people who are able to make a living and be part of the community as taxpayers or as contributors, one of those things. But the society also has to plan for appropriate infrastructure, taxing and appropriate wages, and working towards employment initiatives and so on. So all of these actors somehow have to come together and decide what are the future types of challenges we want to address for future manufacturing to work out and balance. We are partners from 5 different countries in Europe, so as far as we know, we have a international perspective, and we do work quite a bit in our own countries, but we also try to engage actors and community from other countries than our own. But our representatives come from Italy, of course, and Sweden, and also Finland and Germany and Greece. So we have a good spread from north to south, at least. And, as I mentioned before, a lot of our activities have to do with building a community. And as we are speaking right now, we are working on it in terms of having a lot of workshops, and also by having this web page for our project, sosmarteu.eu. We do spread the results of our workshops through this web page, and we also have our collected conference papers and reports from the things we do. We also have a collection of social sustainability initiatives throughout Europe. So if you're curious about what's out there for social sustainability in forms of standards and publications and organizations, then we have collected a few of them so that you can check it out there. We're working on a series of workshops. This is the second workshop, so we can only really tell you about what happened in the first one, but we had one recently in Milan, in Italy, on the 30th of June. That was also in conjunction with a conference. It was the World Manufacturing Forum. That particular workshop was similar graphically to what we will be doing today. Each table is given a theme and discussions are held, and then we share with each other and discuss in the group. The slight difference was that they were about 60 people, so it was a considerably larger organization, and a lot of good scenarios came out of this workshop. This particular gang had as their workshop goal to talk about what are the scenarios we want for the future of manufacturing to be socially sustainable. They did similar things to what you will be doing today. We talked about the as-is scenario today, what is happening in manufacturing, what is important, what are the themes in society that are gaining attention. And then we talked about a future scenario, and then finally, what are the things that need to happen in order for us to get there. And that led to 10 different groups giving a scenario each, and this is something you can read about in the reports from that workshop. So if you're interested in what scenarios came out of that group, then we have some documentation on that. We had 10 scenarios come out of it, but we have selected to combine some of them for today so that we have 6 scenarios to work with. Some of the topics are green and customized manufacturing, that is, there's more care about the environment and there is more customer involvement. We also discussed workers' mobility throughout Europe. This is in terms of where do we find the right competences for manufacturing and how can they be moved to the places that need that particular experience and competence. Thirdly, we have knowledge sharing and collaborative practices. We see that coming as a big trend, and we think that that could be a very interesting topic to talk about in terms of stimulating workplaces. Social gap balancing was also discussed quite a lot. And finally, innovation through mutual exchange between manufacturing and education. So I think you're going to be recognizing some of these themes today when you do your actual workshopping, if that's a verb. We have 2 core topics that we'll try to focus on today. We have on the one side, we want you to talk about what makes a workplace stimulating, and we would like you to provide your own definition first of what a stimulating work environment looks like. And when you work together in groups, we would like you to think of as many current examples of it as you can think of in your experience. Maybe you've heard of some factory that does something in an experimental way and that it's been working out. And what we want to arrive at in the end is what is your future vision for it in the factories of the future. And then, on the other hand, we want you to think about corporate culture. So today the focus is very much on enterprise, I guess you could say, in the balance. But think a little bit about what are the things in a corporation and their way of interacting with people and setting up goals and visions that could help a workplace become a stimulating and attractive environment. And also there, if you can think of practical examples, that would be very helpful.
Unfortunately, our camera at the workshop gave up just before the presentation was over, so I will just complete this video by going through the last few slides that were shown to the participants. We used corporate culture factors as a perspective that would help our participants talk about how the stimulating workplaces of the future could be achieved. So aspects such as responsibility, focus on client and market, leadership, identity, and confidence were brought up as different ways that social sustainability could be either aided or hindered. We also used the workshop template, which was basically a paper poster placed on each table where the participants were sitting in groups. And they were asked to relate to a future scenario that was described in this field here. So it wasn't empty, it was completed with a description of a possible future way of life. The participants were then asked to give ideas on what could be a stimulating work environment related to that future scenario. And they were also asked to reflect on what corporate culture practices would be essential for this stimulating work environment to come into being. On the left-hand side of the poster, we also had a kind of memory strip so that our participants could remember the different social sustainability goals that we had discussed earlier. And then finally also what the different corporate culture factors were called. On the other side, participants were also asked to think about necessary developments and potential roadblocks to achieving the future scenario described. So finally, the workshop was started with 3 groups working with 1 scenario each, and each group was helped by 1 facilitator from the SoSmart team. And this was done in 2 one-hour sessions where the groups first discussed for 45 minutes, and then each group was given a 5-minute opportunity to describe their stimulating workplace ideas to the rest of the room. And finally, there was a wrap-up discussion where the future stimulating workplaces in total were discussed, and the SoSmart team described how the work would proceed from there on.